welcome to the January 14th Board of Selectmen.
January.
It's January.
Really?
July. Wrong
This is
month,
not
sorry.
starting off.
July
That's a text.
14th. Okay, there you go. Tonight we have Kelly Bigos, our recording secretary, J.D. Warren, Les Hoffman, myself, Denise Griffin, Bill Hamlin, and Wendy Wolf, and our financial secretary in the audience, Julia Latter. What's that? Financial officer, thanks. Okay, let's approve the minutes to the January, here I have this problem with J months tonight, to the June 23rd meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve those minutes.
Second, any discussion? They were sent out to us?
Are you doing the June 23rd?
I was just doing the June 23rd, yeah, it's the first one on the agenda. Doing it somewhat backwards. I think that was our it was the 23rd, right?
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
23rd. Yeah. Yep.
I think there's a typo on here, it's not backwards. The next one's the 30th.
Right.
So, no discussion, all in favor?
I'm abstaining because I was absent.
Okay, great. 4 approvals, 1 abstain. And can I hear a motion to approve
So
the
moved.
June 30th?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so moved. Financials, Julia.
You have your revenue and expense sheet before you tonight. Total revenue year to date, $55,133.32. And total expenses year to date, $63,476.23. I'm not sure if it said 55 million or 55,000, but those are the revenue and expenses 14 days into fiscal year. Tonight's your first warrant of the fiscal year with accounts payable totaling $402,537.46. And bank balances of today, $1,996,872. And I didn't do the graph this evening, waiting until the audit started today. So they should be in and out of here pretty quickly by the end of the week. So from there, we'll take the concrete numbers to be able to do a comparison for the graph sheets that we'll have to open right now.
That's my favorite.
Yes.
There's not a lot of data as the first 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
1 point graph.
Did anyone have any questions on the revenue or expenses?
Only that we wish the revenue was 55 million.
Exactly.
So,
The close of the year is gone.
It is. It's going well. We closed up the end of the year, June 30th, and you'll notice on your warrant recap that the total accounts payable includes the last of the liabilities as well that will pay out, so, on June 30. So the books are all closed and being audited this week.
Okay.
and do you have any idea when the auditor will get the final results to you?
He actually said that by the end of the week, they'll type and we're going to have the trial balance and everything done earlier this year than obviously last year because we had some computer issues. And he said within a couple of weeks.
Okay, great, wonderful. Okay, town manager announcements. Town manager Wooden is gone tonight, but I did want to wish J.D. Warren very happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
I won't say how old, but if you're familiar with that famous Beatles song,
Oh, really?
it might give you a little clue.
There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to report there. Let's move on to public hearings. So we have liquor license tonight from the Lobster Dock and American Cruise Lines. They are both renewals. Would you like to take them together?
Please.
Please.
You want to take everything together, or we'll just take these together?
I do have one question about the mine oyster or gone skiing, so could we do that one separately?
Yeah. Okay.
So that sounds like a motion to take the Lobster Dock, the cruise line, Are those the only liquor license? That's,
That was the only liquor.
all right, so we
Yeah.
take those two together. Motion to
Okay.
take those two together.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. And then we have a,
Well, then we need a motion to approve them.
oh, yeah, we do.
Don't we?
Okay, motion, all right.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve,
Second. Second.
all in favor? Okay. Then we have a victualer's license for the Bayberry House.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, and then there is a special amusement license for Gone Skiing, Inc., DBA McSeagles, and Mine Oyster.
Yes, and my only question was the schedule of planned entertainment was 9 PM to 1 AM, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, year-round, unamplified. I was just curious, is that usual, typical, is that, it doesn't have, it's unamplified, I imagine that has no impact on surrounding individuals. Well, 1 AM is
1 a.m.
later than most that we see, so I'm just curious.
We can look it up.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, we're not,
Because it says, outside area for unamplified music, so when it's the unamplified and it's outside going to 1 AM, I just
Yeah, that's.
want to make
that's a long
sure
time.
people are aware of that.
Right.
Because that's outside. And water, sound carries over water really well. Since I
Absolutely.
live across from Robinson's, I know, so.
right. I thought our code had, about noise had an 11 PM.
Non-amplified entertainment. Unless otherwise noted, all non-amplified entertainment shall not commence before 9 AM and must discontinue by 10 PM.
So this would be a variance to the ordinance.
Yes.
Sounds it.
Well, it's a good catch, Mike.
Well,
Well, and yet the application has a note beneath it. So, well, this talks about Special Amusement Code, Chapter 74, including 1 AM curfew on entertainment permitted by this permit. So, and given that this is handwritten in as unamplified music, it sounds like something that doesn't really fit into this request.
Is this time sensitive, or are we able to table this till we get clarification on this?
I don't know. All I can tell you is that this was dated, the application was dated June 17th, but I don't know when it was received in the town office. Any ideas, Julia?
Is that their liquor license? Is that their liquor license?
No, it's
No.
a special
This
amusement.
is music.
I don't recall any conditions changing, so that's why I was wondering, do you want me to go grab last year's license application?
Yeah, would you?
Sure.
That would be
Sure.
super.
Noise levels, all that. Amplified is what you just read.
Between 6 PM and 9 PM.
I think this is a continuation of what they have always had, at least the Thursday through Saturday part. The on the deck, Saturday, Sunday, June through September, 8, 12 to 4.
As noted, all non-amplified entertainment must not commit, this is
I'm
what
reading
Bill
it as
just read, yeah.
unamplified.
Right there.
Yeah, discontinue by 10 PM.
But I don't understand why they wrote Class C here, because they're saying unamplified and unamplified, so I don't understand why they're asking for a Class C, which says amplified.
Well, I think they're asking for
Is
both.
that for-
Yeah, and the center of the restaurant would be for the amplified music.
Mine
Are they,
says,
Bill, they extending that?
It's center of restaurant.
I read that as corner of restaurant.
Corner of corner restaurant.
Oh, and outside
outside,
area
yeah.
for unamplified.
That's the way I read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's the same thing for Mine Oyster.
We understand it, but we can't do that.
Yeah, that's what I was reading
The
from.
variance,
Bill,
Yeah,
we can't do that. I mean, it's clear in here what we're supposed to be doing, I think.
yeah.
So
We can't extend that to 1 o'clock.
No.
Can't do it.
well, except that underneath on the schedule of planned entertainment, I'm familiar with the special amendment code of the codes, chapter 74,
Special amusement
including the
code.
1 AM curfew. So it is mentioned on the, that's why I'm just unclear
So what
versus
is-
what's
where is
written in the
chap-
code versus
Oh,
what's
this
on
is
the
chapter
application.
74.
This way.
My only concern is I'm not sure this is totally up to date. I'd like to go online and look at the codes.
So I think we
Table
should
it.
Table
table
this
it
until we
until
have
we
a
can
chance to do
do
that.
some
This
research.
Yeah.
last year's, it's the same.
And if Ralph
Just give
has to
Denise
have
a-
this quickly, we can have another
Denise?
really
Yep,
quick
just
meeting.
give Denise this and she can. There you go.
Okay, so, this is exactly a continuation. He's asking for a continuation, or in other words, a renewal of what they had last year. The words are identical.
Well, that's helpful. It makes me feel more confident it's a continuation, but I.
Still doesn't sound right, does it?
Doesn't sound right according to this.
Well, it doesn't sound right between what's in the application versus what's in the code.
Right.
So,
Well,
are we able to give them a provisional approval pending the clarification of how this is in alignment with the code?
It's our code enforcement officer that, polices it, so I'm sure that.
Well, that, he could just send us a clarification of how these two align, about, I don't wanna hold up the license, so I think we could probably give him a provisional approval pending the explanation from the code officer about the difference between the code in the handbook and the 1 AM time that's specified on the application. Just so we have a better understanding of that, so.
sure.
The
So how-
2012 application is worded differently. It doesn't specify the times. It just says weekends, year-round, nightly, July and August. This is 2012. I think you have 2013 there.
Right, right.
Which
Well, I
says
mean, this is better
bands
because
9
I,
to 1, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, year-round, unamplified on deck, Saturday, Sunday, June.
I think the issue is between the amplified and the unamplified.
Right, yeah.
So, how do you all want to proceed? Do you want to table it, or do you want to approve it conditionally, or do you want to approve it for 2 weeks?
I'll hold them up. I move we approve the special amusement permit, subject to a strict interpretation of our current codes.
Sure, second.
Second it, yeah.
Any more discussion?
So what that means is the code says, unless otherwise noted, all non-amplified entertainment shall not commence before 9 and must discontinue by 10 p.m.
Yeah, my only concern is, I don't, Jay, have you updated your book?
No, I have
And I
not.
have not either. I'd like to get
So let's,
the official online version to make
Okay.
sure there hasn't been amendments. to
Hadn't
extend
been
things to
amended?
1 a.m.
No.
That's
Okay.
the only reason.
so then that motion is
So
Is
the intent of my
valid.
motion is that we approve this, subject to our current codes, and then we go to Jeff or get
Okay.
a code book and double check on what the times are.
Okay. All right, I agree.
That works.
Yep.
That work for you, Wendy?
Sure. If we're approving these, I want to make sure we're
No,
doing our
good.
due
No,
diligence.
that's all right.
Wendy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because there have been some concerns about amplified
Noise.
music outside. So, but fortunately, that's not what this request is for. So, any more discussion on
No.
Bill's motion? No, all in favor?
Good.
Okay.
That's the one.
Okay. It's conditional.
So that's your 2013.
Denise?
Yes.
We have to review this again, though, after we get the information.
What's that?
We have to review this again. We're doing a condition.
Next week,
Yeah.
in the next meeting,
We
2
should
weeks,
put it on
2
an
weeks
agenda
from
item.
tonight.
All right,
Bring
all
that
right.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it'd be good to have a report back.
Okay, and then we had one more liquor license extension, since we're working on the extensions. The yacht club would like to request an extension of their liquor license to serve alcohol at 150 Western Avenue for one day on Tuesday, July 29th, when they're gonna have an award ceremony for the Lobster Run, which is the sailboat race. So can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So usually we have Bob Hosh sign off on liquor
No, they already have a liquor
license.
license. He doesn't sign off on these. This is just an extension to
To their other property.
To the other,
property.
other property.
That's
yeah.
the White House
It's
to
the
the
White House
left?
next to their parking lot as
I
well.
mean, Bob should be aware of this, but I believe he is.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
any
Okay.
more discussion? All in favor? Okay. Great.
Good. Thank you, JT.
Okay, so that takes us to old business, and I think we're gonna move into the discussion of comprehensive plan. And we have planning commission staff members here today and committee members to talk to us and share information about the plan. If you wanna come forward, you're welcome to.
Get in the camera light.
Was that?
Get in the camera view, so local
Get
people-
between me and the camera.
My name's Mary Ellen Barnes. I work with Bob Fons and Emily Reinhold at the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, so we're working on the comp plan. And I'd just like to mention a few people from the committee here. J.D. Logan, Palmer Payne, Mike Tomko, and Gary Ullman are here, so, thank you.
Bill.
Bill.
I'm sorry, you're
Bill
sitting in
Hammond.
front. Yes.
Okay, so tonight, we have brought the draft plan to you. The process is that, pending any comments or input that you have, the next step will be to have a public informational session scheduled. We don't have a schedule for that yet. And then pending the results of that, we would schedule a required public hearing that's required by the state with a 30-day notice period. And then, depending on how that goes, we would submit the plan to Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry, which is basically the old state planning office, for their review. Now, Mary Ellen and I have discussed whether or not we could submit that plan for kind of a preliminary review by them to see what comments we had, because I think the goal was to have this plan before the voters in November. And we've got to back off from that date. So at this point, I'm unsure of the timing. But we've worked on this plan for close to 2 years. Many committee meetings, an awful lot of input by the committee members. We had a public survey that was actually fairly well tended to by the public. I think we had 166 folks who responded to the survey. And as I told the committee when we first discussed those results, I thought that they represented very strongly a public that was well satisfied with their community. There are really very few negative comments. They had a couple of concerns about traffic in the summer, a few concerns about parking, but all the critical things about their community they were positive about. And they were also very constructive about what they would like to see in the future. They'd like to see more work done to encourage tourism, more work done to encourage population growth, more housing opportunities, more job opportunities. So, and that's all positive. It's not like a NIMBY approach, not in my backyard. And that was refreshing and very enjoyable to see those results. In fact, I think they were satisfied with town services for the most part. In fact, the only thing I can recall that they asked that the majority of folks wanted to see expanded was sidewalk system. You have an extensive sidewalk system now, the most extensive in Lincoln County, but folks want to be able to walk even more. And so that was one of the recommendations. So what we did a few weeks ago, we sent you a summary of the plan. There's 17, 18 pages of summarizing most salient points of the plan and the recommendations. And then delivered to you, I think, last week was the full draft plan, which is quite a document. Now, what we have done, in addition, apparently the town website's under construction or something's happening to the town website. So Tom said we could not put the plan on the town website. So what we've done is we've put the plan, the draft plan, on the lcrpc.org website, along with the summary document, and a link to that has been put on the town website. So it's pretty seamless. You just go on the town website, click on, and any member of the public can take a look at both the plan summary and a PDF of the plan itself. So I guess this is really your meeting to tell us what you think and what comments or recommendations you might have.
I'm happy to jump in. First of all, I want to applaud the very hard work of the committee and putting together a really impressive plan. And I will admit I am only on page 140 of 186.
Oh, you missed the best part.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I intend to finish it. But first of all, I think you've done a tremendously thorough job and been very thoughtful about the issues that have been raised over the areas that are highlighted from historic resources and water resources on down the list. There are a number of things in here that actually have implications for the Board of Selectmen. There are a number of places where there are recommendations for selectmen to, say, appoint economic development committees and things like that, and not having enough time to read the entire thing. One of the things that I'd like to make sure that I know in detail is where those recommendations that are frankly in our purview really are, so that we can credibly think about what are the responsibilities that we would be taking on and what would be the commitment from the community in terms of garnering volunteers to serve on these committees, so that we can be fully prepared to think about how we implement this plan. But I learned a lot from it. I think the plans in terms of enticing younger families and actually enticing people in terms of population growth, given the projection change in our demographics, which is actually a very frightening projection that our community will be about half or 2/3 the size that it is now. That means a shrinking revenue base, and how do we balance that with the need for providing services? So one of the questions that I wanted to pose, which I am not aware of, is First of all, is the town of Boothbay also going through this process? Because I do view that our economic and population fortunes are intrinsically bound together, since the growth potential of our town is a limited landmass, basically. And you say in your own report that economic development and growth of new businesses and renovation really will have to be renovation of existing structures for the most part, except for expansion of single-family dwellings. So I view a lot of the things that we view as important for us have to be complemented as sort of a regional approach to make sure we're thinking strategically to complement each other's strategies. For example, I would anticipate that the exodus of younger families might really have to do something with affordability of housing in Boothbay Harbor, so that it might reflect a net exodus to nearby Boothbay. So how do we look at those net changes in a way that works for both of us? So that was really a question, and if the committee has had conversations, I know John O'Connell probably has a more comprehensive view of what's happening in Lincoln County. Can you respond?
Well, yes, Boothbay, the town of Boothbay is doing a comprehensive plan. I think we might have started around the same time, pretty close, and I think they're having a public hearing in a few weeks on their plan. So I think they're on this almost a very similar time frame as we are. I forgot when we had a joint meeting of the two committees quite a while ago. Where we had an initial exchange of concerns, ideas, and we haven't formally met since then, but I think you're absolutely right that whether it's transportation, housing, economic business attraction, that kind of thing, we'd be looking for the selectmen and others to evaluate how you want to develop partnerships with Boothbay and other towns. So, but I think we're looking forward to taking a look at Boothbay's comprehensive plan.
Yeah, the prior CEO, Dabney Lewis, has been here for a long time. One of his goals was to actually have a joint comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
And he had recommended, and the town had put aside funding to do the comprehensive plan, but Boothbay's timetable wasn't aligned. They had not funded it at the time. So Boothbay Harbor started, and then a few months after Boothbay Harbor started, they decided to do their own plan. So it just couldn't align, and it was a shame. But
Sure. Well, I think we talked during a previous meeting about some of our aspirations for the year, and talking about trying to at least have conversations with the Boothbay Selectmen. This is a great opportunity to give some framing around issues and strategies for us to focus on in an aligned way. So I think you've provided some really excellent ideas trying to look at our future in a very, very comprehensive way. So
I'll also respond to your comments about the committees. You've got a lot of talented folks, especially retirees who've moved here. And right now, Boothbay Harbor actually has very few committees. And so where does it all go? It goes to you folks. And other similar towns actually have quite a few committees, and they make recommendations, go to the Board of Selectmen, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide whether to go along with those recommendations. It seemed like that was a resource that was kind of missing here. And so there are probably 4 or 5 committees, I think, that are recommended: economic development, and housing, and other ones. And I think the thought is tap into some of the resources you have here. And take that approach. Just maybe a little bit different approach.
sure, it's a great idea.
I will also say that one of the major recommendations in the plan has to do with the future land use plan. What we are required to do in Boothbay Harbor is to designate a rural district, and conversely, the rest of the town would be a growth district. And the idea is that almost all growth-related capital investments would be in the area that's designated for growth, as opposed to rural areas. And a lot of discussion went with the committee on, well, just how do you define where the boundaries of these are? Because it is zoning, and it raises people's interest. But I think Boothbay Harbor, thinking about it, it wasn't all that difficult because Boothbay Harbor is a relatively densely developed community. And essentially, where the development is now is the area that is reasonably developable. And the areas that aren't developed, that haven't developed over the last 100 years or so, are because they have a lot of constraints. Either slopes or wetlands or ledge or soils or similar constraints. And in the plan itself, we provided a number of maps that kind of mapped out those constraints. And once you look at where those constraints are, the boundaries that we recommended pretty much fall in line. And then in addition, those areas contain some state-designated resources. And they also include land that is either owned or in fee or or controlled by easement by land trust or the Boothbay Botanical Garden. So this land wouldn't actually be developed, likely to be developed anyway. And the third point is that there was a lot of concern on the committee, especially with John O'Connell, about if these areas, these rural areas of Boothbay Harbor are developed in the future, what happens when people start demanding services? As you said, it's difficult soils, difficult slopes, wetlands, and when septic systems start failing, people say, I want the sewer. And it's not only the cost of extending the sewer under normal circumstances, but extending sewer under ledge conditions is very expensive. So that was another thought. So as you look in the plan, look in the future land use plan, you'll see the rural area that's designated. Now, we should add a final point is that the existing land use pattern, what's developed in the rural area, is pretty much a 2-acre density anyway. Most of the lots out there are 2 acres with very few, 2 acres or more with very few exceptions. So that was probably the major recommendation. And we did have a recommendation that the planning board study the feasibility of creating a village residential district. We had originally thought about proposing a specific village residential district, but then the thought was, well, that's really something the planning board should do. And that would be kind of a district that would be between the commercial area and the general residential district, and would be defined by compact, well-developed, solid residential areas. And you can almost pick those out if you looked at a map. And the purpose of that would help protect their integrity in the future, because those are some of the most attractive and reasonably affordable residential areas in the town. Anything else?
I think just to talk a little bit more about the economic development proposal, to have a committee or another strategy, and it's true with housing and transportation, is you can only get so deep in a comprehensive plan. So if you were to take a deeper look at economic development and look at the assets that you have, and you could go into much more detail and do some comparative work with other communities around tourism and energy and other walkability, and just really see where your place is in the region. And we just can't get into that depth with a comprehensive plan. And I think it would give you a chance, and I think some communities appoint a committee for 3 to 6 months, give them a time frame for doing a strategy. Others develop an economic development or any other kind of committee as a sounding board. So I think it's, again, something for the selectmen to discuss, just what kind of task would you like a group to take on. But there's much more work to turning around the demographics at the same time that you work on protecting the assets and building on the assets that you have. So we think it merits more in-depth participation by citizens and businesses in that particular topic.
Palmer?
Just briefly, if I could. The plan is a plan. It's not an ordinance. There's nothing in it that's required by the state. The state requires that you have one if you're ever going to have a zoning ordinance, and that's why the land use is so important, because if the developer comes in and you don't have a zoning ordinance, they can do pretty well what they want to do.
Right.
The sessions were intense, and a lot longer than we expected. We started around March of 2013 and expected to be done by September. 16 months later, our committee of about a dozen was down to 4, plus the town manager, the county administrator, chairman of the planning board, and code enforcement officer. And everybody really studied various sections intensely. But it's sort of a statement of good intentions of what the town should be looking at, but there is nothing binding in it whatsoever. That's what the general public should know very clearly before they vote on it. It's a requirement of state law that every town have one if you want to have a zoning ordinance, basically. But it's also a good idea to look at various other things that are in there.
Sure.
And everybody has their own hot spots. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Well said, Tom.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, I'll just say that I was rather shocked also, like you were, when looking at the population projections. I thought that that was really kind of sobering, yes. I think we knew it was happening, and we knew the average age in town was going up, but to see the population projection go from what we have today, which is on another page, but I think it's something like 2,100, to 1979 in 2015, to 1,463 in 2030. That's a decrease of 516 people in 15 years.
Yeah.
That was, that was concerning.
Yeah, well, brings up the issue of how do we plan prospectively to be thoughtful and aggressive about, nurturing the town and economic development, and do so in an environment knowing that even if we have in-migration or attract young people, we may have then a flat population based at best, and not necessarily a net gain from where we are now. But I think those are really important things when we look at both town functions and town services, and perhaps even for us to look at budgeting and things like that, perhaps on a per capita, or at least have some standards of what are we spending per capita as a way to start benchmarking that as we look at some changes in the population density. So there may be some implications for us budgetarily. So.
Sort of along those lines, I think if the age groups are, I don't know that projecting forward, I don't think we had an age group projecting forward for Boothbay Harbor. We did for Lincoln County. But if the average age is going to continue to grow, we might want to think about the kinds of services that we need for that population. I did have 2 other thoughts, which actually I've already shared with Mary Ellen, but I'll make them public, and that is that I thought it might be useful to have some kind of reference or section about emerging technologies and about being able to accommodate them going forward. And I don't, technology is changing really fast, so I don't know what those emerging technologies are, but we want to be able to embrace them and to somehow or other set up the infrastructure so that we can implement them faster rather than later. And I think there are more and more people that, for example, are working from home and whatever we can do to encourage I think those kinds of things would be helpful.
I mean, you've talked about that before at one of our last meetings. You talked about communications, energy, cell towers, a variety of both, I think, communications and utilities, in terms of trying to anticipate the installation of those so that you could actually not only do this effectively, cost effectively from the utilities and companies' point of view, but also do it in a way to balance off the fact that you've got scenic resources, attractive neighborhoods, and how can you come up with the right balance. So you want to encourage that, but you also want to
Yeah,
make sure that can be done to maintain the attractiveness that you have today.
absolutely, absolutely, particularly in our downtown district. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we want to maintain the current appearance, but we want to have all the best modern amenities possible.
Sure.
So,
Can I just ask a clarification, because I did read this section on economic development, but I might have missed, was there any recommendation at all in terms of the capacity as economic development to make sure that the whole town is, say, Wi-Fi connected? Or, I mean, major cities have done that where they are trying to really make internet access universally available, and certainly one of the growth sectors in the Maine economy is people working from home and having more commuting sort of jobs. So if we're talking about economic development, and yet we have a lovely place to live, a strategy that deploys technology and makes that widely available throughout a somewhat rural community, I didn't see that in the economic development part. I just wondered if that was part of the discussion at all in the plan.
I don't think we, there's not a clause in there, but based on some, what Denise suggested a couple weeks ago, I started to put together some wording, so we will add something to the effect in the economic development chapter. So, not sure why we overlooked that, but.
okay.
I
Go
just,
ahead.
I think it's a great report. You did a beautiful job. I commend the committee on working on it. There's a couple of things I'm concerned is, how do we get to economic development? How do we get people to Boothbay Harbor to work? What I'm saying is, how do we set up the business? How do we do that? I've read, I'm only up to 104 pages on this, so I got to reread it.
Ahead of me.
But what I'm saying is, the fishing industry is, really hurting. It's not, we lost our shrimp and that lost employment. And I'm just saying, we're going to have a big major change here. And we are an older population. You pretty much said that in here, that we are an older population. My idea is, do we have a committee that would be nice to go out there and get economic, somebody to be interested in Boothbay Harbor to start businesses here?
Well, I think that would be an outcome of a committee that you folks pull together. I would say that for the most part, a lot of the jobs that are created across the country are done from the existing businesses. So one really strong approach that we really recommend, because you have so many in different sectors, that you really look to identify how you can strengthen them and perhaps increase their job opportunities here. And that's by either connecting them better with workforce training, for example. And I know we had a great discussion in the committee about better partnering with the high schools, so that there's not only are there aspirations among the high school students for jobs that are local, so they can maybe go away but then come back to good jobs, but also that you're looking at the business community here and seeing what kind of mentoring and apprentice things make sense for them to be able to accommodate a high school student in some of their work, so that there's a two-way relationship there between the businesses and the students. So I think that's the other option. The other thing that Wendy brought up earlier is that it's probably, as a regional approach, working with Boothbay, that you can get into identifying the proper businesses that you might want to attract. I still think they're going to be of modest scale, but you've got some sectors. You still have the potential of offshore wind. We don't know where that's going to go, and maybe that's beyond some of our lifetimes, I'm not sure. But you've got a very strong tourism sector. How can that be strengthened through infrastructure and other marketing and skill building across the base of employees that you have there to actually continue Boothbay Harbor's reputation as a destination. So I think if you look at what you have today and look to strengthen those and really begin to talk with your individual businesses, that you'll figure out some of the tools that you'll need. I think the day of attracting larger companies or factories, 200 people, I think that's a challenge today.
Well, I agree with that. But I
Someplace in
agree,
between.
but I agree with Denise. I mean, the technology, the technology in Boothbay region. I mean, I remember, going on and taking college courses, and I had to go to other communities to do it. I mean, what you see what I'm saying? I'm
Yep,
going with the
yep.
technology. How do we, in the library, right? That's a great asset that they've gone to the technology where you can go in and actually do something.
So you've got adult ed and the library and some other smaller resources that could
But
be.
what I'm saying is, when we have a committee, if it goes down to that, how do we track, a business to Boothbay Harbor? How do we do that? I mean,
Well, I think you need to make it a very targeted, well-researched approach. I don't want to put my finger on any one thing, but other than looking at where your strength is compared to other communities, so that you're not all competing for the same sector. I would say, too, that we had some great discussion and led to a recommendation that we actually take some forward steps around trying to designate a marine enterprise zone, so that you're actually looking at the whole aquaculture world. And maybe, I don't know whether Gary or Mike would like to speak to that, but the notion of actually doing more with aquaculture and the different shellfish and seaweed potential
Right.
off the shore. So I think you want to look at your assets and look at what you have today.
right, I agree with that. Yeah.
And then prioritize those. It's a bit of a process, but it can be done. Many communities throughout the state do have taken on after either a crisis or a comprehensive plan. They've dug deeper into economic development.
Frank?
Frank Bassett, Boothbay Harbor. All this talk about economic development is, as you know, many of you may know, I have a keen interest in economic development, some experience in it. And I think that to that end, the first step has been taken with the comprehensive plans in both towns. We've taken the right step and we've gained a roadmap. There's nothing binding in it, but it is taken as much as it can and as much as the public want to participate. It has taken their feelings and their ideas into consideration when we're making this roadmap. To that end, since this step has been taken, I truly feel it is time that we consider seriously hiring an economic developer for the region. Somebody that is a professional. Bangor, Maine was on its face. Nothing going on there at all. The people that they hired, you look at it now, and I'm not saying that we need a huge thing like that. However, that city, through their economic development department, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, flourished, and it is flourishing still. And I believe that they just lost their economic development director, but they're going to get another one. And so to our scale, we really need somebody who comes in from outside. However, we couldn't do that until we had our comprehensive plan. So I applaud everything that was done with the comprehensive plans. We could not take the next step. But trying to do this internally and throwing darts, trying to hit the right, there's many levers that need to be pulled if we want to at least stabilize or increase our populations. Because the next thing that we're going to have trouble maintaining here, and, we have trouble with the hospital now, we're losing that, are going to be the schools, and I've said that before. They're going to be the next problem. The less students that we have in the schools, in 1991, we had 72 kids in kindergarten. I think we have 25 today. How long before that just doesn't become viable anymore? We're close. We're close to that. I think we're close to that. So anyway, I'm very positive. We have so much going for us down here as a region. If you think about it, from botanical gardens to world-class boat building to biotechnology we have up in the industrial park, to a brewery, to everything that's down here. We need somebody that can come in here and go, wow, and talk about it, catalog it, index it, and help us brag about it. There are lots of reasons to live down here. And like I said, the comprehensive plans are the first step. Boothbay has expressed an interest before in participating with Boothbay Harbor in sharing an economic developer, and it has been met with resistance from Boothbay Harbor. Now's the time. I think before, I really think it was too soon. But now that we've got fresh comprehensive plans in both towns that are our guiding and our roadmap, it's time that we step up and that we take control of this. Because if we don't, and we just sit back, we're going to turn into a Millinocket. And we have got so much, love Millinocket, great place. Go up there if you want to get scared. really. And look at it before and after from just 10 years ago. It's horrifying. I stood in the middle of Main Street on July 1st for 10 minutes at noon, and I didn't have to move, no cars came. I mean, it's scary. And so they know now, and they're trying to play catch up. We need to do that before, and I think an economic development director or a department shared with the region, it's time for us to look at that again. And it's time for us to go back and talk to Boothbay about sharing that cost. Remember that Boothbay did change the night of their selectmen meeting, and I cross-attend. You know, I go to both of them, and have welcomed and invited anybody who wants to go. And I would love to see, as I said before, and it's going to bug you, but I'd love to see a couple of you guys, or one of you guys, or work out however you want and go, because it is important we know what's going on up there. There's a lot of stuff that we can share. There's a possibility of sharing costs. And we can turn this around. We really can. I'm extremely positive and excited about what's going on here. But it's time that we take a step, and we really can't fix this economic thing ourselves, I don't think. So anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you, Frank. Helen?
Helen Farnham, Boothbay Library. I have to agree with Frank. If any of you had watched the Selectmen's meeting in Boothbay, Chris and I watch it every week. We watch this one also. But they did comment that they did want to meet with Boothbay Harbor and Southport to get everybody together, which I think is a great thing, to get everybody together, and that would help with your comprehensive plan, but get everybody on the same page, so everybody's working towards the same goal. Now, I've commented to Chris, for the last few mornings I've come off the hill from Bay Landing, and you know, it's very quiet. It's a very eerie quiet. I hear no voices, because you think I would at times, but I don't. But I don't hear any kids playing around. Excuse me. I don't hear a lot of vehicles, although I may see them parked down the road. And we took a ride over to Ocean Point this afternoon. I saw the St. Andrews Village bus sitting there at Grimes Cove. And 2 cars, 2 people walking. We went the whole length. There was a 1 car. There was a 1 person we passed till the very end, and there was 2 ladies walking. It was so quiet, even at the end, there was hardly anybody around there. There was nothing. And it's true. And we're losing that, and you've got to attract your businesses, but you've also got to have housing available for them. You've got to explain that there will be some sort of health care for them, since we have lost the hospital. You know, so it's time that everybody starts to think, how about getting together and see if we can get this going? And you have housing. We have 3 or 4 different areas where big people were coming in to do something. They got 1 or 2 or whatever. And that's places for housing for people. Why not use it? Why not get somebody in to take it over or work at it? To get people interested in coming here, and I have seen a lot of ads lately. I think it's the Boothbay Farm and Boothbay Region Farm, however it's worded. They have been advertising, and some other towns. And like I said, Bangor has got a lot of ads on there now. So stop and think. And yes, we are an older community, but you're not gonna, and it is dwindling down very much, I'm sad to say. And one other thing, if I may, it wasn't to do with this. It was I may be confused on it, but having the amplified music, or is it amplified music you were saying, or cutting them off at 10 p.m.?
It was the request to go to
Unamplified,
1 a.m.
Yeah.
for the music, yeah.
As a person that has always been downtown till 10, 12 years back, people were there until, last call, they had it 1:45, 12:30, 1:45. 1 o'clock was the deadline, and everybody was supposed to leave before 1, just so that you have that knowledge. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comments, questions?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, Mike, Tomco.
Yeah, Mike Tomko, Boothbay Harbor, 59 Roads End. I just wanted to answer Jay's question, at least from my perspective as a resident here, about how do we encourage additional economic development. Some of it you have already going on that is right under our own noses and really needs to be celebrated. There's 2 young kids that are, I call them kids, they're younger adults that are starting a business to sell pizzas in a brick oven, and they're planning on taking some of their profits and putting it into a scholarship so they can hire students that are going to culinary school. And they've received a grant from CEI, which is sponsored by Goldman Sachs, for a low-interest loan. And they're excited and thrilled about being here. You've got another couple that's doing a recent lobster shack down on the Granary Way, and they're acting as ambassadors. So many individuals come down, where are the directions, where are the bathrooms, how do I find this and that? And so there is that spark and fervor. The young folks that purchased 93 Townsend are doing quite well with their business down in, I think it's Falmouth or Yarmouth, and yet they chose to come to Boothbay Harbor for the area, for the beauty, and they are completely gutting and rehabbing that building and making it into a production facility to do ceramics, as well as a place for them to live and raise their family. So while the projections from the state, which appear to be dire, and I think the committee pretty much agreed that we think that the trend is true, we don't think it's as bad as what the state projects, but we don't disagree that it is trending negatively, towards an increasing age. There is opportunity, and there's enthusiasm and excitement. I'm so fortunate I get to see that at the planning board level, and how we can cultivate and capture that and nurture it and grow it through, as maybe what Frank has said and other suggestions. Just briefly here, in the conclusions for economic development, it says that we're a seasonal town, and if there's a way for us to be able to somehow stretch and draw out those seasonal aspects, maybe it's possibly keeping the restrooms open longer, maybe it's ways to encourage town facilities to be able to strengthen that, and then business can be in that. So it's a great roadmap, and where we go is up to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Yeah, I had a couple things. And I'm way behind in my reading homework, so I'll get there eventually, and if these things are addressed, that's fine. But I was kind of struck, I really appreciated the survey, and I went to the results of those numbers. And I was kind of struck by the small number of respondents, and wondered if there's some discussion in the document about what you felt or maybe talked about in connection with increasing that kind of participation. And the other thing that I wonder if you could comment on is, we've talked about technology and economic development, and one of the survey results was an overwhelming, I think it was 80 or more % desire to preserve our small town way of life. And whether there, I mean, again, there might be something in there that addresses this, but could you comment on that balance between, first of all, maybe what that means, small town way of life, growth and economic development and implementing technology? That's a struggle, I think.
I guess a couple things. There are at least 2 separate recommendations in there that that one committee or another identify unique views to the water in Boothbay Harbor.
Yep.
Because that's something that draws folks. And that's part of maintaining those views one way or another as the town develops in the future is one way of preserving the community. As far as the numbers, it says in there we've got about 2,000 residents, I think, and almost everyone who responded to that survey was a resident. And there's a bunch of kids and other groups in that 2,000. So when you start filtering all that out, 166 is really it's a pretty good number. Now, we did everything we could to make it convenient for people to fill out the survey, and that was about the best we could get, and it's probably about as good as any survey we've been doing in the county. I think that's. I wish we had more, but and it's not a scientific sample, but I thought it was pretty good. I think also we talked. I mentioned earlier about that village residential district, which could very well be on the east side of Atlantic Avenue, north of Union Street, maybe on the west side of the Townsend Street, Route 27 area. Those neighborhoods are really defined the residential aspects of Boothbay Harbor. And I guess my sense was that if in 20 or 30 years from now, those neighborhoods look like that, with that kind of building stock, in roughly those proportions, you will have preserved the small village way of appearance of Boothbay Harbor. If, however, there's been a lot of infill development or raising of buildings, it will go a long way in the other direction.
The other piece I would say is someplace between attracting larger employers and trying to support what you have in the downtown area. I think it's going to be very imperative that an economic development committee or group really look at the assets that you have today, how they're fitting into the neighborhood today. I mean, in one sense, the plan is a broad brush. There's a bit of detail here, but to figure out how much more in the way of commercial development, home occupations the neighborhoods could absorb, I think you want to really look at the specifics that you're talking about. So to preserve the small town way of life is a great goal that every rural town in America probably adopts at some point. But really, what does it mean? You know, and Denise's point about, well, can we at least talk about it in terms of utility lines and cell towers and other things? And I think as we look into parking that might be required as small businesses get into medium-sized businesses, how does that really work in your neighborhoods in Boothbay Harbor? So I think I think it takes a lot more fine-tuning.
I agree.
So, I'm here, you have one more comment?
Well, I just want to ask, you mentioned energy and how there was not a section on energy yet. One of the overall goals was also to have the town prospectively think about changes in storm surge, ocean level rise, and so I'm just curious if I didn't read any expectations that the town itself participate in thinking about how we be a part of mitigating those changes in what's going to happen in our environment, with a commitment to trying to do energy efficiency, greener technologies, things that really, first of all, diminish energy costs for so many of our residents. Every year I'm out there emceeing for the LIHEAP fundraiser and thinking about energy efficiency as a sustainability and also a community economic development strategy, I think is really important for all of Maine. So I'm just curious, I didn't see that really anywhere in the report, so I'm just wondering if that was discussed, because it does have implications for some of the goals that were articulated.
I'll take a shot at you mentioned the sea level rise. The Regional Planning Commission has provided an awful lot of data on what is expected, what the impact will be in the harbor as sea level goes up. Short of a major hurricane hitting the harbor head-on. That's going to be a gradual impact over time. And I think we've got a recommendation in there that the town, especially the Public Works Director, start taking that into account as public works projects are done or planned. But the fact is that data is here, and that's something that really it's something that has got a fairly reasonably long planning horizon. But I guess there's a concern of raising the red flag too much and scaring folks. I guess that's part of the aspect too. So we kind of, we're modest in the recommendations on that.
Yeah, and I'm not even raising red flag, I'm just talking about smart use, smart energy. We talked about this in the town meeting, that say if we're replacing utility poles with lights, let's put a photovoltaic panel every time we have to do that, so we are diminishing energy costs and using more energy efficient resources. So if that's a lens through which the plan is moved forward, so that becomes part of the questions that are asked in housing, economic development, et cetera, that's just one more filter that makes the town more responsive. And frankly, younger people are concerned about that. So if we want to attract young people, one of the ways that you do that is make the town seemingly, I guess, welcoming to the perspectives that really resonate with them. So it's just a point to add into the comprehensive plan. So thanks.
I agree with you completely. I want to try to wrap up the comprehensive plan discussion to get on to our next agenda item. Yes, yes, you may. You've been rather quiet on this, actually. You were a big part of putting the plan together.
Just very briefly, and I would like to perhaps look at it from a little bit more of a 10,000-foot level. When we started this 16 months ago, everybody had a lot of energy, and I always felt, and I think it's been borne out, that the benefit from a process like this is going through the process. As much as this piece of paper is worthwhile and captures a lot, the process of having sat down to think about economics, to think about housing, to think about transportation for our town is very good and has generated the enthusiasm that we've seen here tonight. And I think that may be one of the best byproducts of this plan. And so that's good. I want to echo what Palmer said. It's a plan. It's not a roadmap cast in stone. And I think the challenge for us, all of us, the select board as well as the public, to be figuring out, to be realistic, there's more in here than we can do. We don't have the energy to do everything we've said is wonderful to do in here. The challenge for us will be to pick and choose those things that really will move this town along, will better our quality of life, prepare us for the future, and focus adequate resources on those things so that we get them done, and not worry about some of the smaller issues. Not that they aren't important, not that we don't need to think about them, but let's hit the big targets, the low-hanging fruit first. And I think there's more than enough here to do. And we've had a lot of good back and forth on the committee and the committees and the Lincoln County planners have been more than responsive in taking the community's input and fully get into this. So I think we have a challenge ahead of us, but I think we have good things to do about it.
So, Mary Ellen and Bob, if anyone in the audience or anybody reading the document, and certainly for the selectmen, if we get you feedback within the next 2 weeks, 1 week, is that good timing?
Couple weeks be fine.
2 weeks?
Yep.
Okay, so between tomorrow and the next board meeting, any
The 28th,
comments,
the
wordsmithing?
Yep, I think we talked about a couple of things, so we want to wordsmith, yep.
Right, that we can just feed directly to Mary Ellen and Bob. And I think, I know the board at any rate has your emails,
Yeah.
so.
Great. No, thank you, we appreciate it all. It's,
Denise, can I just want to, I know there's anxious to move on to the next item, but would it be all right to ask at least you two, to return so we could talk a little bit about what you see as the public rollout, because this is dense, even in its condensed form, and so I'd just be really curious how we can help sort of beat the drum so that when you are trying to get public input, we can put our heads together to make this easily digestible, maybe a little provocative, so people might be interested to show up. And, I mean, we want the public to hear about this, so trying to figure out how we can get information out to the public in a, not necessarily a soundbite way, but something that can make it easily understandable, because even the executive summary, I think, it takes time to read, and the general public's not going to do that. So I want us to be thinking with you about how to be helpful to get good public turnout for that.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate all
Yeah,
the work.
Thank you
All
very
the good
much.
work.
Did a good job.
It's
gonna stay
excellent
for-
document. So, moving on to the next agenda item is a really nice positive thing tonight. Annually, we grant the Spirit of America Award to a local resident whose commitment to volunteerism most exemplifies the most positive leadership qualities of a volunteer who cares greatly for the residents of this town. Frequently, this award goes to an individual who has been very vocal and has been in the news over the past year, and frequently that person is someone we all know. This year, we're granting the award to someone who has very quietly, persistently, and consistently worked behind the scenes over a number of years to improve the quality of life and well-being for many local residents. I am pleased to grant this award on behalf of the Board of Selectmen this year to Boothbay Harbor's own Lee Sample.
I have never been so surprised.
The real award will come in, I think, November, but we wanted to give you a little token
Well, that is
of
a-
our appreciation.
That's more than a token, and I thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed everything I've done, so there's nothing about it that I wouldn't have done all over again. Aw.
Great, great.
You know that. Oh, my goodness.
So she was surprised.
I'm on it.
We have a nice bio of Lee's work that I will email to Katrina so she can put that in the paper. But just to give everybody in the audience 30 seconds on why we were granting this award to Lee is because she spent many years being an active volunteer for the Boothbay Harbor Memorial Library. She frequently read books out loud to children at the elementary school. She volunteered in almost every possible way in the Boothbay Harbor Congregational Church and was instrumental in co-founding and building the Meals on Wheels program, which of course we all know still exists today. That program, of course, is critical in allowing individuals to stay independent in their homes. And as we just heard in our comprehensive plan, things like that are going to be more and more important over the next 15, 20 years. So Lee was a Boy and Girl Scout leader, president of the Garden Club, member of the Hospital Auxiliary and St. Andrews Advisory Board. So for almost 60 years, she has been a strong community leader. I think that she's made a huge difference in many lives throughout the Boothbay Peninsula and way beyond. And it's the quiet volunteers that make this town very, very special. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. Moving on in our agenda, we have public forum. Are there any other public forum items tonight? Seeing none, I do not believe we need an executive session.
Nope.
I think we can move to the warrants.
We can.
Do I hear a motion to approve the warrants?
Move that we approve the warrants after careful examination.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the warrants? Move to adjourn, anybody?
Move. Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you very much.